Oh, hello, friends. What am I doing here? This is a giant telescope, and I'm getting ready because it looks like we might have a clear sky tonight for a perfect viewing of the moon. Have you looked up at the moon lately? The moon is pretty awesome. If you haven't looked up at the moon lately, you should step out on a clear night sky and look at the moon. Even better, if you have a telescope, take a look closer. I'll try to share some of the pictures that I've been able to take over the years. This is a story about the moon landing, and this is a nonfiction book, and it's one of my favorites because it's a pop open book. And so you see, our journey to the moon began long ago. On a summer day on Sunday in 1969, two American pilots had climbed down that ladder, and one of them was Neil Armstrong with the famous one step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And so I love this book because it's actually giving you quite a bit of information. It's even got some little pullouts for you. And you can see this is one of the earliest rockets that were created. Now that's changed over time. And if you get a chance, if you didn't watch it in the last one, you'll want to watch that video that is the race to space. And here you can see this is from Project Gemini. This is one of the modules that was used. And there's a lot of information that you can find on the internet, a lot of video that explains how the space capsules have changed over time and just how technology in general has changed over time. And so here we can see we have this giant space capsule. And a long time ago, this right here is where the astronauts sat, right here at the very tippy top. And all the rest of this was actually meant to help send them to space. And so this one came in 3 stages. Ironically, though, after so many years of changing, if you do a little bit of research and you look at the new one that's being created by SpaceX, you'll see that we're going back to that model. But things have changed quite a bit. Here's when we were going to land on the moon, and here is what the moon, or what they believe the moon to look like. And so here is a pop-up to show you. And you can see that the moon is full of craters. Now, why craters? Well, there's a lot of meteors flying around, and as those meteors crash into the moon, then they leave craters behind. Now, on the moon, we know that the moon is actually traveling around Earth. So if you take a look here, there's some different moon facts. The moon's gravity pulls the Earth's oceans, causing tides. The moon is 238,857 miles away from Earth. Light takes a little over a second to travel from the moon to Earth. Without an atmosphere to carry sound, the moon is completely silent. Now, how is it that we're able to see the moon? Well, the moon reflects the sun's light, and that's how we're able to see the moon like we do. These are some of the astronauts that have actually traveled to the moon. And this is going to give you a little information about astronauts. But if you watched in my last video presentation, there was some information there to talk about astronauts. So here we had our first moon landing that was in July 1969. The alarm went off just 5 minutes after the lunar module had begun its final descent to the moon's surface. Program alarm, said Armstrong. His voice was calm but urgent. It's at 12:02, and this is a little information about that, which there's some video links that I've included to give you more information about that. But why are we talking about the moon? Well, a lot of you have studied the phases of the moon, and if you don't remember the phases of the moon, there is a video link here for you to watch the phases of the moon, as well as I've included a really tasty activity that has to do with creating those phases of the moon with the Oreo cookie. So why is it so important that we're talking about the moon? Well, we have not launched an aircraft from United States soil since 2011. And on May 27th, we had a expected launch date from SpaceX. The Crew Dragon was supposed to launch on May 27th. However, due to weather, it was scrubbed, but it's going to happen again. And we are expected to launch on May 30th. So I hope that you're watching at home. Now, what is the plan behind this launch? So if it goes as planned, this is just a quick trip. There's only 2 astronauts that are actually traveling on this particular space shuttle, and they're going to make a quick trip to Earth's orbit. The Falcon 9 rocket's going to release the Crew Dragon. They're sitting there at the top. They're going to release the Crew Dragon into low Earth orbit about 12 minutes after they take off. So it's a real quick trip. And then the rocket's going to return to Earth, which is pretty fantastic. Now, typically in the past, they would drop and parachutes would have it land in the ocean. But now they've got this to such a science that it is actually going to be landing on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. And then for the next 19 hours, those two astronauts are going to be orbiting the planet, much like the moon orbits the Earth. Inside, those two astronauts, Benkin and Hurley, they're going to try to sleep while they're waiting to catch up with that International Space Station. What makes this particular launch so spectacularly different is in the past, those astronauts, you have a whole crew on board and everybody's busy the entire time. Each person has a job. I got to do a demonstration in one of the space shuttles where I was the pilot, and you have a whole manual and you've got switches all around you, and you are busy the entire time to make sure that everybody is safe and that you are on course. But this particular spaceship, the technology has advanced so much that these astronauts have very minimal jobs that they will be required to do. So they will be trying to catch some sleep while they're waiting to catch up with the ISS, the International Space Station. But it's pretty exciting times, and I hope you're going to watch this launch. This is just the beginning of a longer program where they hope to then launch from the International Space Station to the moon. Remember, I told you he was going to come back to the moon, and then they are going to launch from the moon to Mars. And our hope is that eventually we'll be able to create a biodome on Mars, a habitable living space for human life. And so that is so far down in the future, but there will be at some point, maybe it will be you that will be going to the moon.